We'll take a few moments to pray and thank God for his provision in our lives, as well as ask him for wisdom as we move forward. So if you would, just please join me. Jesus, we just pause to thank you. You've provided for us in so many ways, and we just be reminded of that, especially during difficult times, because we tend to look at what we don't have instead of what we do. And I know you've been reminding me that a lot lately, and just been some major blessings that you've bestowed upon us, as well as just the little things that we take for granted every day. So we thank you and we give you credit, and we bless you back, Lord, for all you've done for us in our lives. We ask also for wisdom, knowing our human frailty and our weaknesses, Lord. We are truly like sheep, and we do need your guidance, and we need you to be our shepherd. Lord, we need your decisions as a community, as a family, but also individually. And so help parents as they think through every decision that need to be made for their children, for each child. And Lord, just guide each and every one of us. May your will be done, Lord. May it be made known, and may we follow and obey whatever it is you've called us to do. Thank you again that we can be together. We thank you for this technology, and we ask your blessing upon our time together. And we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Again, thank you for coming, and I look forward to our meeting together. And I'll hand things over to Dan at this point. I think you're muted. I think you're muted, Danny.
All right, there we go.
Yep.
Good evening, everyone, and just want to say welcome and hello. If you're not speaking at the moment, which you shouldn't be, but you can, but please mute yourself so that we don't have any background. John, can you see my presentation mode up there? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Good. Good. So just a few things as far as format and etiquette. If you have a question that you would like to ask, we will have a time for questions at the end. You may also use the comment chat, and John will help me address those chat questions either as we go or when we have a break in the action. We've come up with just a small agenda so that we have kind of a place to start and maybe be able to answer some common questions that we've at least received. But I want to let you know that John's door and my door are open, whether it's a phone call, a meet like this, or a meet in person. And we'll continue to be here and available for our parents and our teachers. We've already started meeting with our teachers, which is abnormal for this time of year. Normally, we try to leave them alone until about a week or week and a half before school starts, but we're just in a little bit different time and place. And in order to be prepared, our teachers have been training, they've been working. We've encouraged everyone to please take their time this summer, spend family time, and prepare. But nevertheless, we know that they've been putting a lot of extra time in getting ready for the school year. So with all that being said, I need to let you know that we are recording this meeting. If you do not agree to that term, you are welcome to leave the meeting at this point because we are recording. The meeting will be available for you to listen to again, and that will be posted on our website as well as a couple different avenues. Appreciate John leading us in prayer to get us started, because that's the focus of what we're doing. Is we want to make sure that we seek Christ in all we do and to glorify him, and especially in the midst of times that are just different and challenging, we have to make sure we go back to our starting point, which is Christ. So wanted to address a few things that we received in the form of questions. And first of all, a reminder that we do have a new calendar out. Our first day of school will now start August 25th. We're using the week before for teacher training and services, professional development, and then we've had to come up with an open house schedule that accommodates smaller groups, smaller venue. And so with all that happening, we needed to extend school back to an August 25th start. We do not anticipate a later start than that, and we're on schedule to start that date. So every student is given the opportunity to pick a learning modality for this year. We're finding that most of our students will be right back in the building, but there will be a portion of students that have a choice to do a remote learning format. One of our common questions is, what does remote learning look like? And, there's a lot of misunderstood terms from time to time. One of them that we hear is homeschooling, online learning. The best term to use right now is remote, because you will be considered an Emmanuel student. You will get to choose that modality each quarter. We've decided on quarter just because, ultimately we look forward to the day when all of our students can be back in to school, but we understand, the opportunity to provide a different format for families. The reason that we provided this was in turn due to the parental feedback that we had about wanting a remote option. And that was throughout not only elementary, but as well as the junior high and high school. Initially, we felt like it was going to be an option for junior high and high school, but we weren't sure about elementary. And the more that we worked through it, we really felt like that needed to be an added component. So TK through 6 remote learning will be a little different than high school, but it will be offered. What will it look like? And I imagine that as we go throughout the quarter, we will continue to look at it, improve it. But we have hired a remote learning specialist that will be outside of the classroom and will be available to remote learners at home. This will be in conjunction with a calendar time in the morning, which would be considered a live event for the remote learner at home. And then we will be encouraging our elementary teachers to record special teaching instructions throughout the day, to go live when they can throughout the day. But we understand that a TK through 6 classroom looks a little different than a 7th through 12th grade classroom. So with that being said, 7th through 12th grade would be more of a synchronous or a live experience. This would be live stream. Students would check in at the beginning of their class with their teacher, and then they would be live streamed with the teacher. We are encouraging our teachers to record, especially a lecture or the teaching points. For science classes, we're encouraging that the teacher is live to go through experiments and those kind of things, so that the student feels a much part of the class as if they were here. We do know that from time to time there will be internet issues, maybe at the student's house, and possibly here. And for those times, we will circumvent and work through those issues. But we do believe that the remote learning experience will be different than what we experienced in 4th quarter, when we kind of just had an immediate ordered shutdown. And we're now positioned a lot differently to handle the remote learning atmosphere, given what we went through in the fourth quarter. So it might be a good time to just stop and maybe take any questions in regard to remote learning. We can do that via chat. Or if you have a question, you can unmute, ask that question, and we'll address that question, and then we'll get on to the next.
Just to clarify, you're asking for questions related to distance learning at this point.
That is correct. So we do have a question that popped up. So the question is, so there will be a teacher or someone else teaching, not the parents. So yeah, that's a good question. Once again, the two different grade levels kind of lends itself to that. Michael, in particular, is your question in regard to a TK through 6th grade student, or is it a 7th through 12th grade? Okay, good. Thank you, Michael. So once again on the kindergarten, 4th grade level, or TK through 6, the remote learning would take place at home with the student. And so we will not be online to give that student assistance all day long because that particular teacher will be working with the students in their class. However, the moments of teaching and instruction will either be live or uploaded as a recorded and then can be watched. So certainly at the TK through 6 level, there is going to need to be some more parental support because we cannot provide the supervision, but we will provide the tools and the resources through the Google Classroom platform. So hopefully that answers that question. To answer Andy Hayes's question, if we start on site, can we switch? So there'll be several reasons if a student starts on site to switch to remote. One would be a quarantine or an isolated experience where there's been exposure and you have to quarantine. That would be an excuse to switch. Barring that, then you would have to keep your decision throughout the quarter. Now, we always understand that there's unforeseen circumstances. We're willing to visit those. What we do not want to get into is the student that starts, attends, 7 or 8 days on site, and then says, well, I want to give remote a try. They go home, they do remote for 3 days. I'll go back to school this week, and then they go back to remote. That is what we will not be able to work with. So we're looking at a more definite time period. Most of the schools in the area, we're aware of several situations that you either have to do it by semester. There are several schools that are having you choose per year. We did not like either one of those options, and that's why we went per quarter. Because ultimately, we'd like the opportunity for our student to get back in the building. We want to give that opportunity. And then secondarily, we felt like if there was a student that started out remote, but we come to a little maybe better time, safer time at the end of the quarter for them, then we want to let them in. Lydia Devine asked a question about uniforms. And if a student is remote, I would just remind you the terming for our uniform is campus wear. So if they're on campus, they have to wear campus wear. If they are remote, we do not, as long as they're modest and they're, they're on camera, then that's fine. We're not going to be policing uniforms at home, but that's a good question. That's not the first time I've heard that. Christine Swinford has a question about taking tests via remote learning. We're actually walking through that with our teachers right now. What we want is the same assessment for a student, whether they're remote or on site. That's the biggest thing. Now, what we may have to do is we may have on the test day, it's a mandatory, if you're remote, you're going to have to check in, be at that time. You cannot make up that test, that quiz, only the exception if you were sick. But the only way to maintain the integrity of tests and quizzes is to do timed and to have them happen inside of that class time period. And hopefully that makes sense. John Waldock asked a question about participate in remote learning. Should they have a day or two of presenting symptoms, or they've just recorded absent? Make up work. That's a great question. The reason I like that question is we really need parents to understand this year that if your child is symptomatic, whether that's fever or they have a couple of these COVID type symptoms, we would prefer that you not bring them and then we have to send them home, but that they just go ahead and log on, and that's acceptable to do a remote learning option while they're symptomatic. I'm gonna double check with our nurse here now, but I believe it's a 72-hour symptom-free period before they can come back. Is that right, Carrie?
That is correct.
Okay. So, John, that's a great question, and that would be considered an excused absence because they would check in with class, they would be marked on attendance for attending remote, and because of the pandemic situation, it's just going to look a little different with attendance this year. But I would maintain that the big thing that we need with that is communication from parents, check in with students and parents, and that will help keep us all on the same page. Let's go down to, I see Gabby Whetstone as the next question I have. By the way, if I refer to you with the wrong name, I'm just going with what's on my computer screen. So bear with me, just smile, and you can clarify if you want. So Gabby says, will they have a block of time, such as 8 to 10 for instruction, and then to complete assignments, and that's third grade. So ideally, Gabby, that would be the scenario we're looking at. However, what we know most about elementary students is starting routines at the first of the year is key to developing a schedule, especially with the students that are in the building, and we understand that that's the same with the students at home. That's why we're working with our teachers to go live as much as possible and to develop a schedule as much as possible. But we know that barring them having, an in-room person that can facilitate questions and those kind of things, that at first to get started, what we're planning on is a live event every morning and then some scheduled time, each day, which for the remote learner, the teacher will let you know what that looks like. Andy Hayes, well, let me take Michael's other question. The busing question is something on my town hall agenda that I'm fine working around the agenda and kind of answering this as we go, especially since this is kind of an academic remote piece. But busing, we have to wait to hear from each district, and we imagine that over the next couple weeks we're going to have all kinds of updates in regard to busing. Ourselves, we have no control over the busing, and we work with each district.
Yeah.
So far, what we've heard has been very positive in regard to busing. So we are encouraged by what we hear on busing. I think somebody else asked, are they going to have to wear, mask on buses? And all that applies. School districts are coming up with their policies in conjunction with governor-led initiatives. And so, we will We are planning on busing, and we will continue to provide updates to those students in those districts. But we highly recommend that you contact your district office, and then as we receive changes, we will let you know. The quarter calendar, it is on the school calendar. I think, John, actually first quarter, John, is October 15th or 16th. Second quarter, I think, is December 18th. Hey, Scott, I think we're going to get to some of I'm going to have John cover some of the other, like, building safety precautions. He'll cover that, heating and ventilation, here in just a little bit. Oh, yeah, thanks for answering that, John. Appreciate that.
Got one.
Okay. And another academic piece, we believe that the specials, especially TK through 6, that we offer are very important. And so music, art, and gym, understandably, so will look different for a remote learner. You know, you're not going to actually go to that art class, although we are going to, we're going to talk through those options for doing some recorded stuff. I've talked to each of my music and my art. They have some real fun stuff planned that will involve the remote learner. Gym, obviously, the ability to record in that gym, it would not be a great experience. And so, you know, we'll work through that option and try to support, you know, the music and art a little bit more. Obviously, Mr. Meisner is great about coming up with activities that you can do at home for gym. But we'll work through more of the music and art piece a little bit more delicately than the gym piece, because it'll be a little different. Did I miss any of the questions in there, John, or did it look like I hit them all?
I just picked up 2 more.
Okay.
3.
Okay. Start with Susan's question. Yes, Susan. We are seeing that 8 a.m. time in the classroom each morning as a really important part for the remote learner to be a part of. They will get logged in for the attendance there that day, and that will be for the day, the login there. The only issue with that is schoolwork will need to be completed during the day for that K through 6 student, and we'll reach out to students that may be struggling. That's where we'll get our remote learning specialists kind of narrowed in to helping out. Our intervention staff will probably be tasked with helping out some of the students that are struggling and need some additional help as well. But the K through 6 login time or check-in attendance time will be 8 a.m. and that will be with their homeroom class. Elisa Davis's question. This is a good question, and I want to make sure I'm careful about how I answer it. And I have no idea, you know, what the traveling situation is going to look like for each person. There's going to be obviously necessary, and then there's going to be vacation travel that we have every year. If you travel to an area that has a higher acuity and are asked to quarantine when you come back, then yes, you can remote learn upon your return. But once again, we want to facilitate and help you and your child with their education during that time. And we want to do that in as safe as way as possible. So yes, I appreciate you asking that. That's good. That next question that we have, if a person tests positive in the school, what is the plan? I'd like to get to that. I'd like to defer that just for a moment, because I'd like to get through all the remote questions and then go on. So I'm gonna wait maybe for 1 more minute for any additional remote or academic type questions. Not that we can't come back to it, but to just try to keep us kind of on the same wavelength. Like I said, we will, when we finish up the meeting tonight, we will ask everyone to hang up. And for those that may have a question that you wanted to ask in a smaller setting, we're going to stay on here, John and I, and maybe a few others, all the way through the last person hanging up. So once again, if you have any follow-up questions about remote learning, we'll have some additional information that will come out. Please remember to turn in your forms. The reason why that's so important is teacher prep. We want to make sure our teachers are prepared for the students they're going to have in the classroom, and that they have a good plan for what it's going to look like at home. This year, more than any year, our teachers are going to be tasked with being prepared for each day, and we want to make sure that they have the opportunity to prepare before the year starts. So that form is due Monday, August 10th. We'd love for you to complete it before then. We will start doing follow-up phone calls August 11th, and really need to have our number set so that our teachers can plan their classroom. Okay, so we'll go on to the next, might be a good opportunity, given that we had the question about what a positive test look like. So before I answer that question, I want to say that we're working closely with teachers on each of their classrooms. You know, what is each classroom going to look like? TK through 4 in particular, we will have dividers on tables and on desks. And the reason that we're going with those on the TK through 4 level is a lot of those the learning environment in those classes lends to stations, to small groups. And so with the dividers, we have an extra protection built in around each student that will raise well above their face and allow them to continue to work in a much safer way. So in the other rooms, and including those rooms, seat charts will be established. They'll be used for their class, for their special, at lunchtime. And so if we have, take for example, we have a positive test in the 3rd grade, that class will be informed. The people that are around that student or can be traced to that student will be informed. It may be necessary to quarantine that complete class. Terry, you want to do a little follow-up on that? Some of this protocol, by the way, we will obviously be working with our local health department. They've been helpful, but we're still waiting to receive some additional guidance. Terry, you want to follow up on that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So if a person tests positive, I think it falls under, on our return to school plan, the direct contact that student has had, and the direct contact is for 15 minutes. So, I mean, definitely the person that they're sitting next to, like at lunch, playing with at recess, perhaps, would have to be quarantined. There's just a lot of different factors that would play into it. It doesn't necessarily mean that the entire class is going to be quarantined, although it definitely could. A lot of what ifs, but I would definitely be working very closely with the health department and follow their recommendation for what we do. So, I mean, I can't give you like a definite answer of what is going to happen.
It's safe to say, though, that we're trying to limit the number of people they're having contact with. So if we do have to trace, we're not talking to hundreds of people, right? So, and anything you can do to help that as well. So, doing things outside of school that can limit the contact. So we're all going to be better off if we know who we've been around, and those are a few numbers. You can count them on one hand to be ideal. You start getting in 2 and 3 hands, it gets complicated. Tracing. So we're trying to do that with seating charts and with limited, they'll do recess together, they'll do lunch together, so they're not going to be mixing with the entire school population. That way, we can notify the right people and keep everybody as safe as possible.
And it's also my understanding that if you are exposed to a person that has tested positive, the health department will definitely be in contact with you, and you will receive a document from the health department saying that you have to quarantine for the 14 days. And that is definitely something that we want you to share with us. And there is going to be, in all of the orientation packets, there's going to be a release of information that you'll sign for your child that will give us access to the health department so they can give us information, not a detailed history about your child, but if they happen to test positive, that we would have orders, stating that they have to be in isolation. Does that answer the question?
Thanks, Carrie. Thanks, John.
Yeah, Tim had a question about recess. Maybe.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to address that. So if you've ever been in our building to see a lunch and a recess happen, we've paid particular attention to that time. We believe that play is still integral and important. So, lunches, they'll be spaced out at tables. Recess, we have a staggered recess schedule at the lunchtime that will limit the amount of people that are out on the playground. We are closing down, at least for a while, our big jungle gym. They will have access to our field, the playground itself, the swings, and the teeter-totters. Those we believe can be cleaned quickly. The big jungle gym just can't be. So we are also encouraging teachers to use separate times from lunch. And we're developing a recess schedule that teachers can take their own individual classes out and play on their own. And that way they're not mixed in with other classes. So that's how we're doing that. Thanks, Tim, for your question, or Phoenix.
Phoenix.
Let me cover a couple other items underneath this that I think I can hit real quick. Number one, we're installing, I believe the final number is 15 additional hand sanitizing stations spread out among the building. That's not including the hand sanitizer that will be in your classroom. So every classroom will have regular hand sanitizing between activities, during the day, as they walk the building. It's going to be very easily accessible. That's just going to be a routine. That's just going to be something we do. I think all of us are kind of getting used to hand sanitizing our hands a little bit more. Bathroom breaks are going to look a little different. A bathroom break for a first grader and a bathroom break for a fourth and fifth grader is different. The first grade needs a little bit more supervision, whereas a fourth grader, we're going to encourage teachers, obviously, individual bathroom breaks are better than taking groups out. Our classes this year, we've been blessed with the opportunity that we split a first grade class. And so we're about 13 and 13, 14 and 14. So our class sizes are optimal for distancing and for being in a lot. Our typical classroom capacity is 29 and 30. So we have a lot of room in our classrooms. And, we've had on several of our classes to go ahead and had to cap it so that we don't fill up anymore, and that we can maintain the integrity of the distancing in each of the classes. With that being said, we do still have a couple spots left in second grade and fourth, but I know at the moment our TK and K are almost full, but they're safe full. It's looking like we'll be at about 14, 15 for K, and then in the TKK split, we're going to probably be around 10 to 12. And so our numbers are just optimal for this situation.
So it looks like we got some questions about masks and sanitizers. I addressed the one online with the sanitizers, but you might want to talk about the masks.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So we knew we'd eventually make it to masks, and we felt.
Oh, here it is. There it is.
That looks good, John. Looks good. We have masks that will be available for students, by the way, and we are going to give them to students. We suggest that every student not only comes with one on, but has an extra, just in case. But we will have regular mask available, masks for the young ones, masks for anybody that forgets. When we sat down to come up with the plan for return to school, we felt like we had, in comparison, one of the a very good, strong mask policy. The local health department gave us a commendation on it, said good job. Obviously, when DeWine issued the additional mask order this week, that kind of changes that. What does that look like in the classroom? What does that look like here? I do not believe that we're in a situation that they're going to be in a place where they can never get reprieve from their mask. There's going to be times, we know that at lunch, they don't have to have their mask on, they're eating. We know at recess, they do not have to have their mask on, they're exercising. But our teachers are going to be encouraged that anytime that they deal with the students up close, that they mask up. Of course, our teachers have to wear them anyway, but they ask the student to mask up, especially when we're working close together. So I know the masks are a very important item, and they're highly discussed one way or the other, whether you agree with them or not. But we're in a situation now where the mandate kind of takes some of our flexibility away, but yet I believe we're going to maybe see some additional clarification before school starts that would allow us to have some leeway. And, we would never want a student to be in a situation where they feel like they can't breathe. So we'll get to Gabby. Somebody remind me about the open house question. We'll cover that in just a minute.
Yeah.
I think that's Gabby's mom. I appreciate Tim's question, because one of the things that we stated on our return to school protocol for mask is we don't mind, your Star Wars mask, a Marvel mask. Those are all fun things, Phoenix. So thanks for asking that. What we don't want to see is any political agenda. That would include whoever your preferential presidential candidate. We don't want to see that mask here. Mask with the American flag would be wonderful. You can do that. Mask with Bible verses on them, great. Mask with Marvel, Star Wars. I would ask that you be careful about, somebody said that Phoenix mentioned Nightmare Before Christmas. Just remember, we have students of all ages in our building, so anything that may scare you may scare one of our kids. So I would have to just keep that in mind. If I'm walking the building and I'm told that there's a mask that could scare a younger kid, we may ask them to take that off, and I may give them a replacement for the day. So we like creativity with masks. I like to wear the buff. We will have Emmanuel buffs as well. So we'll kind of go from there. John's got a question about masks with dividers at the desk. And That's one that I like that question because I don't know how to answer it yet. The governor has stated that shields are an appropriate replacement, but they don't protect as well as masks. So they are allowed to wear a shield, but they don't protect as well as masks. Well, I'm going to have to wait till we see maybe a little bit more language to see, what it would look like TK through 4 behind that divider. What I would like to see is that would be a good opportunity that as long as they're working individually and the student and the teacher doesn't have to come up and work with them, that might be a great time to mask down per se. I need to make sure that we're lawful in that. So we'll have some clarification come about, but by all means, the substance that we're using as a divider can be cleaned and is safe, and the students will be behind that divider.
Hey, Dan, let Carrie jump in here. I think she wants to jump in.
It was about just the masks in general. So finish your thought, please.
Yeah, so I would also just, a follow-up on the divider. If we have older students, 5th through 12th grade, and the parent really would feel safer sending your student with a divider for their desk or their table, whatever area they're in, you may send that. We only took the TK through 4, and those will be ready probably next week. But a parent is welcome to send anything they would like, as long as we can make it work and it's safe on the desk. If you have a question about that in particular, I would be happy to set up a time where you can come by with that item or take a look at the desk that your student's going to sit at, and we'd be more than happy to help facilitate that in the classroom for your student. So Carrie, go ahead. Go ahead and follow up with your comment.
I wanted to talk about, I'll just touch on mask exemptions. If your child has a medical reason that they cannot wear a mask, we do need a form from that physician stating that they are medically exempt from wearing a mask prior to that first day of school if they're coming into school. We have a form that you can fill out, or I will gladly accept a form specifically from your physician's office. But I just wanted to touch base on that in case there are any kids that do have a medical mask exemption. That was all.
Thanks, Carrie.
Do you want me to jump in and answer Scott's question at this point?
Yeah, why not? I mean, because I think it involves the building safety.
Yeah, and you can cruise the chats there, make sure we're not missing anything. I think we also need to address open house, and so I think somebody else wanted to know about when their last deadline date would be on, deciding distance or stay home. But Scott, we looked into, and we appreciate you sent us some information, and we had looked into an opportunity similar to that, different technology, but to put like UV light or another device that didn't use UV, but was a way of killing 100% of things. And the bottom line is, it's really expensive, so it's $24,000 for the devices installed plus electricians. They're estimating about $8,000 to $10,000 for the electricians. So we're talking about $35,000 to do that, and that's one issue. But the bigger issue was that in the end, when you get down to the spec sheets and what they can actually promise and deliver, given our air exchange rate, it wasn't going to bring a much improvement to our air quality here. I mean, obviously anything would be helpful, but we don't have high enough exchange rate. Obviously we meet health standards, but the exchange rate of getting the air in and out and through those devices is not fast enough. Though, like if you're sitting next to somebody for 15 minutes and they're they're COVID positive and you have your mask down, or whatever, it's not going to help us in most situations where people contact or contract the virus. We're not going to be able to exchange that air quick enough to prevent those kind of exposures. So in the end, it's something. Boy, if I had the money, I'd probably do it just because. But when we got the results back, or what we'd expect in terms of benefit, it really wasn't that high. So we looked at it. I had 2 full quotes put together, and we looked at it pretty carefully. But at this point, we've opted to not pursue that just because we don't think it's going to be as effective as maybe as it sounds when it's marketed. But we have done a lot of other things in terms of cleaning and a lot of other areas of prevention. But that air quality is very attractive, but it really, the technology is not right there yet for us, or at least not ours because of the exchange rate. You have to turn the air over very fast in order to make that really effective. Hope that answers your question. We can talk offline a little more too if you want to get a little more technical.
I want to take a couple questions. Might be a good time to go ahead and address the open house. I see that maybe taking a little longer, so I'm going to answer Kim Gosney's question real quick about, will the upper classes be changing classrooms and classmates? And they will. They have to. The format that we're in with students having different classes, so they may have an American history class, and then they have a separate class that has different students. You know, we talked about a traveling teacher mode, but it's just not possible. And so that's why we're going with, we're getting together with our teachers to try to keep common students together on seating charts as we go through. We'll be working to that extent. I think the bigger issue is getting junior high and high school students to understand that giving hugs all day, getting out of each other's faces is probably our bigger challenge than the exchange from class to class, unfortunately. And so we really need parents' help. And I know, you know, they want to do what they want to do, but I think that's probably our biggest battle. All of our therapy services are going to be available this year: on-site, speech, occupational, physical. If we're ever go to remote, we were able to have each of those happen during fourth quarter. Let me tackle the open house question now. We are finishing up the open house schedule. I'm getting the remainder input that we have. We have switched open house. I know I always liked the excitement of open house in the past, coming out on one big night, getting to see everybody. The building was very exciting. Students passing through, people in the gym, people in the cafeteria. But obviously this year we're just, we're in a different spot. But we believe the open house experience is important, so we're not eliminating it. But what we're going to do is we're staggering it, and we're coming up with last name times that you will come. TK and K will be reaching out to their parents, and they will have private meetings with each of their parents. We just feel like at that young age, the student needs to come in, the parents need to see them, where they're going to be, and you'll have a private time. For everyone else, we'll have a staggered schedule. We've got a building entry that everybody will come to. That will be the north entry closest to the street and the playground. There'll be a temperature scan with our nurse. There'll be a time to walk through your classroom, drop off supplies, meet the teacher, flow through the building. There'll be some areas that aren't available just because our gym will be used, and we're trying to keep just freestanding and walking just at a minimal, trying to keep a flow going. But you'll be able to stop by the office, order a Spirit t-shirt, drop off information, ask the office questions, and then be able to exit the building all in one flow. So that my goal is to finish that up, that schedule, and have that to you. I would hope no later than a week from today, hopefully sooner. The question from Divine is, it is your choice whether you want to bring your students to the open house or not. You can, but we kind of see it as what do you feel like you need for your kid? If you want to come by, drop off their stuff, and maybe your students were here last year, which I know yours were, maybe they're fine without coming, and that helps us reduce down on the crowd for sure. So that is your choice. It goes kind of the opposite on the upper level. 7th through 12th grade, a parent can actually drop off their student, wait for them in the car. If you want to come with them, you can. However, if you want to send them through and them go through it on their own, they can do that. We do need everyone to come through, though, especially our remote learners, because that's the day that you will pick up your Chromebook. John clarified Christine's question. And just to address that, I think the most difficult proposition that we ever went through was trying to decide if we could ever stagger, go to school 2 days, off 3. It's a very tough task, not only for parents and students, but for teachers. And we just did not like the flow or the idea that students would be here for 2 and then home for 3. We feel like it's better to either have them here or have them at home. And just to kind of clarify that we received a lot of opposition. That was a parent survey item as well. And that proposition provides a lot of obstacles for our parents. I want to reemphasize that due to our small environment, we do feel like we are a safe place to come back to. That does not mean that nothing can happen here or that children are immune here. That is not the case. They've never been immune for colds, flu, or anything else. But we are a smaller atmosphere, and with precautions, we do believe we can provide a good alternative. And ultimately, that's why we are returning to school and not starting remotely. We know that it is a trend right now with many of our other schools that are starting remote. And I would rather leave that in the parents' hands than I would to say, this is what our school is doing. I believe that the majority of our students will strive in an atmosphere that is in the building and may struggle at home. That does not mean every student will. We had some students that did very well in a remote setting. And hopefully the ones that choose remote will do very well. So Phoenix, yes, your kindergarten teacher will reach out to you to set a meeting with you and your kindergartner so that you can come in, bring your supplies. We have school supplies lists that are posted on our website right now. And so you can access those. I know we've added maybe a couple items to that, and we plan on maybe, with this idea of remote learning, it's added a couple items. It's kind of odd to think that even in the last couple years, the health department told us not to have hand sanitizer as a part of our school list, and now it's back on the list. So please send hand sanitizer, and I think our nurse gave a recommendation of what that hand sanitizer should look like as far as the ingredient. But there is a school supply list on our website available right now. We do want you to take advantage of the tax-free weekend. I believe, John, I think I'm hitting them all as they come in.
Clarification on the time of day. Christine was wanting to know if it's 8 to 3:10.
Yes.
And it's not necessarily 8 to 3:10 for every grade level. So might want to clarify that.
Yeah. So once again, that would go back to distinction. If you're a remote learner, so our school day is 8 to 3:10. So if you are here in the building, even if you're attending remote and you want access to the live session, and for our 7th through 12th graders that are going to have to check in for each class, our school day is 8 to 3:10. The change from 3 o'clock to 3:10 this year was some specifically devised schedule this year for a flex period that allows us to work with students, hold student meetings. This flex time that we'll have during the day, we were able to get that accomplished by going 8 to 3:10. In addition, the old, and I think we're going to continue to see this, the way that school days are measured now are hours as opposed to days. A lot of schools are taking advantage of that, in that we can kind of cut down on a school day on the actual days that we have to come by adding to it. We do not foresee adding to 3:10. We walk through that. I think our initial proposal was 3:20, and we quickly went away from that because of busing schedules and other items. But we see the 8 to 3:10 being viable from here on out. And of course, we'll test it out this year and see how we like it. But
Half-day schedule is the same for TK.
that's correct.
And then Michael asked a question early on about how late can they make this decision for remote versus traditional.
Yeah, and it's a legitimate question. And the reason why we come up with a deadline is for preparation. So what I would ask is, if you're leaning towards coming, please go ahead and complete that you're coming. It's easier for us to make an adjustment to go remote than it is for you to change from remote to in person. And hopefully that makes sense. Because teachers are going to be getting desks set up. We'll do that, per quarter. Same way when we survey you for your learning modality for second quarter, it's a little harder to prepare for the in-person, and the remote, we're already preparing for students there. So, if you're going to change late in the game or the day before, we would prefer it was from the building to remote and not from remote to the building. And I hope that answers questions.
And the current deadline is
August 10th, a week from this past Monday. Christine, I love your question because I love ESM, and I'm scheduled to go on that international trip in March, and I want to go. Our ESM director this year is going to be Ryan Bostatter. I'll be working with him to kind of transition that over. ESM, I believe, is a part of what we want to do as a school. If you're in elementary right now, TK through 6, you may not understand ESM. If you're new, then ESM deals particularly with 7th through 12th grade students, and even more particularly with 9th through 12th. And it's a time where we do service projects. We do maybe student-led projects where they want to go do an internship. We do international trips. We do mission trips. This past year, we had a mission trip to the Dominican planned and Honduras, and both were canceled due to COVID. This next year, we have an international trip that's planned to England, Amsterdam, and I should know where I'm going. The latest update on that international trip is they are still planning on it. And I guess we would not want to cancel that even now or up till any time that we believe that it's viable. And at this point, ESM is still viable. It's March. We hope for a lot of improvement by then. And thanks, Lynn. ESM is enrichment, service, and ministry. And so we have a lot of students that do different activities during that week and kind of enhance their character profile, their resume, as well as their experience as a student. So back to a remote question. If they're struggling or we have improvement with the virus, number one, if they're remote and they're struggling, we want to do everything we can do to help them out. And so we will reach out, we will help. We would still look at that unless we're in a dire emergency that we would want that decision made at the end of the quarter. If the situation with the virus gets better, I cannot wait to see my students' faces every day and stand in that crosswalk and invite them to come into our school. So that is certainly, if we get to that spot, that is something we will welcome with open arms. Yeah, and back in regard to that international trip, if you cancel right now, I imagine there's a penalty, but we've been assured that as long as we keep that option there, that we're going to have a lot more options if we don't cancel. And so I know for myself and my son that's going, you know, we're going to hang this thing, we're going to hold on to it until we absolutely can't. And then we're going to make the company make a decision about helping us out. Okay, so we've been a little bit of everywhere with this. John, Carrie, anything you want to add in? I'm going to look at my agenda while maybe you add something in and make sure we're covering everything.
So, yeah, I just want to say thanks for being on here. We got, you know, at 63, probably more than that in terms of actual people, but 63 devices turned on, and I'm grateful for the questions and the dialogue. We really do value the partnership with the parents. We value partnering with our local churches, and we all see ourselves as collaborating for our children's behalf. We really want to offer the best academic and spiritual environment possible given the situation and circumstances. And in some ways, these things contradict each other, and they're difficult. They really are hard. There are no clear choices. Sometimes in other ways, there are very clear choices. We just tend to want to be consistent about doing what's right and what's best for the student and for the family. So we're praying right along with you. We know you have a lot of individual decisions to make, and we want to collaborate with you on that. And we're thinking and praying about beyond COVID. So, you know, there will be a day and time when that's behind us. We want to look back and say, we'd managed that as well as we could have. And with your input and feedback and participation in the surveys and emails and calls, it's just made it that much easier for us to know how to guide our family forward. So again, thank you.
I just want to say, just housekeeping, nothing specific about the return to school safely plan, but I will be at open house. So if your child has any medications that they'll need to take at school, that would be a perfect time to bring them in and check in with me on that. And then immunizations also, make sure that your child is up to date on their immunizations unless you have an exemption form on file with us. And please get me an updated copy. I would definitely need that by the 14th school day.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Carrie. I thought maybe we'd take the moment. We had a question about uniforms at home, which I've seen a lot of funny business videos with people in their home attire while working. Obviously, that we reinforce that our students that are remote learners do not have to wear uniforms, but I think one of the positives I felt this year was a small change in dress code, but a positive and maybe a little bit more flexible and easy for our parents. I had an family interview with a new family tonight, and sometimes wording can get really confusing. And I just want to make sure you know that, you know, we do have a dress code change, but everything that, if you were here last year, everything you wore, you can still wear. So it's not, we still have a dress code, Emmanuel polo, etc. What we've done is we have opened up in the area of pants. What we felt like is that we could accomplish the uniformity of the school, but allow parents to buy pants for their girls and for their boys at maybe a department store. And we've kind of opened up what that pant could look like. It can be cargo pant. It can be just a regular khaki, casual pant. What it can't be is a jogger, sweatpants, and it can't be jeans. We will still have a jean day on Fridays with our Spirit t-shirts. we've kind of opened up our jeans a little bit more too. And we try to allow for new fashion trends and all that. The biggest thing is jeans can't show skin. I know that holes and big shreds in the jean is popular right now. We're going to allow you to wear them with holes, but there's no skin that can be seen. So in other words, there's some that are designed where they have a covering underneath them anyway. But we try to loosen up that dress code a little bit. Raylan's question is khaki shorts. So what we did with shorts, because you imagine shorts for guys and girls opens up a whole nother thing. So you can still wear khaki shorts, but they have to be educational apparel shorts. That's for boys and girls. So once again, anything you had from educational apparel, you can still wear. Girls want to wear a skirt still, you can still wear your educational apparel skirt, skort, jumper. We clarified what can be worn as a top, and that is any Emmanuel sweatshirt or any Emmanuel long sleeve can be worn over the top of a polo. Or, what you have underneath it doesn't matter. It only matters if you want to take that off. If you want to take this, if the child wants to take off their sweatshirt during the day, they would have to have an Emmanuel polo on. And so that would be acceptable as well. We did have a question about Lion's Den that I wanted to address. I'm glad you mentioned that as well. Lion's Den is an after-school care program for our TK through 6 students. We are offering it this year. Lori Steen, who's been one of our awesome workers, our classroom aides, as well as handles our Lion's Den, will be running Lion's Den for us again. What we're going to do is modify what we do in there and make sure that students can bring activities to work on. There'll still be a snack provided. There is a charge for that service. I believe that information is on our website, but it's not very expensive. It helps out parents that are maybe coming from a working situation, need after school care until they can get there. We offer it up till 5:30 p.m. For 7th through 12th grade, we offer the same service. It is held in a different location in the building, typically the library, because we encourage our 7th through 12th grade students to use it as a study time. And it is supervised by a different teacher, just because we like to have the young kids and the older kids separate, especially for after school, encouraging, play with the one group and then encouraging finishing their scholastic work in the other. I did have a question that I thought we would address that came on one of our forums, and that was when we know how many students are in the classroom. And once again, I just want to reinforce that our classrooms have all will be modified for the situation. We've capped out 5th and 6th grade now. TKK are close to cap. At the 7th through 12th grade level, most of our classes are around 14 to 15 kids. We won't have a for sure number until we receive everyone's surveys, but we're in a situation where in order to be mindful of the numbers, we're going to be very careful about what grades we accept any late admissions into. But praise the Lord, we do have some new students that are coming in here over the next couple weeks, but we're accounting for those spots in our classrooms. Yeah, that's a good question. Distancing for students that arrive earlier than 10 minutes to school. We're going to be encouraging, we use our gym and our cafeteria for spreading out. Our gym has 1,000 person capacity, and so we'll be using every inch of that gym that we need to. Some schools are recommending that you don't arrive until 5 minutes, but imagine the big cloud and cluster of kids that would be coming all in at one time. So I would prefer that you arrive in plenty of time for them to get, settled in an area where they can be distant. And it's a little, we're a little bit more spread out, as opposed to, waiting till the last moment. And then, we have a group of students coming in. Just a follow up on that, we are doing temperature checks and symptom checking, outside. The struggles with that could be weather. Sometimes there's a small adjustment from when you take a temperature outside, inside a car. I've done a little testing on that, and we're having good results. In other words, we're getting consistent results. Let's just say you pull up in your car with your student and our first scan is high, then we'll wait and we'll scan again. We'll scan up to 3 times, separated by minute intervals. If at that point the student still has a temp, then they would not be allowed to come in. We would ask that you would check that at home first, and that way you don't drive to school and something happens. Anything that is 100 degree or higher will not be allowed to enter. All of our scanning methods are no contact, and so that helps as well. We think that process is going to be fairly quick. We've been testing it out with our athletic activities here, and so far it's going very well.
Question about athletics line down.
Yeah, and I need to, we settled, that is, if you have a 6th grader that is participating in volleyball, the answer on that is yes. And I would have you touch base with Coach Herring, Rick Herring, because of the practice situation, we are giving them a discounted rate since they practice later. But yes, that is true. And 6th graders that are playing soccer, that would be the same situation. Thanks for those questions. Those are good.
Traffic patterns are the same, correct?
What's that? I'm sorry.
The traffic patterns for drop-off pickup are the same.
Yeah, no change in traffic patterns this year. Couldn't imagine trying to change it and then make all the adjustments. So everybody, what you're used to is what you will see. Obviously, you're going to be seeing more teachers and helpers out in the car lines because my temperature gun on its own is not going to get it done. I'll have some help out there. We're going to have about 5 people on each side, on each entry. If we have real bad weather, then we'll do it at the door. We'll kind of have to work with that. What we didn't want to do was do it at the door every day, because if we have a student has a high temperature, we don't want to expose them inside the building, and we don't want to have to call you right back up to pick them up. So that's why we're trying to do it at the car, to make it easy for you. We've been on here for about an hour and 15 minutes. I believe we've covered the agenda that we had set. What I'm going to do is now take about a 5 or 10 minute time where we will open up for additional questions. And then as you need to leave, you can feel free to leave. Like I said, we're going to record all the way through to the end. And students can arrive as early as 7:30 a.m. Is the answer to that question. The building doors get unlocked about 7:15, 7:20. We start having regular coverage at 7:30 for safety reasons. So we're open for questions. You're also open to leave. So since you're open to leave, I'd like to ask Pastor Essig to close us with a word of prayer, and then we will finish out with any remaining questions you may leave as you would like. And please, I do want to extend the invitation that there's never a bad time to email me, Pastor Essig. We'll get back, to our emails fairly quickly. Um, if you would like to email and say, I want to set up a phone call or a meeting, more than happy to do that, facilitate that through a Google Meet. Or if you'd like to meet in person, we can meet in my office, in the conference room, wherever. But we are open and available for your questions. We've been given a tough task, but I feel confident in our team. I feel confident in our teachers. I feel confident in the people that I work with every single day to address your concerns and to work through the situation we're going through. I can tell you that our team, I think we feel, I know there's some tiredness there and we're a little worn out, but there's this new energy that we have like every single day that God continues to sustain us with, to address the new problems, to take on the new challenges. And so we're excited about the school year. Carrie, you want to clarify that? But that is true on that question about temperature. That's 72 hours, 3 days. That is correct. So John, will you close us in prayer, and then we'll let people exit as they may, and we'll stick around for any other questions.
Sure. Yeah, Lord, we thank you for this meeting. It's been great, and I'm actually exceeded my expectations, Lord. I just feel like we had a great opportunity to communicate and flow with one another and connect. I appreciate the positivity and the constructive questions and just the concern and care that everyone has. And it's a broad path there, Lord. There's just so many things that we've included and covered tonight, as well as in the plan. I want to thank you for the staff. They've done an amazing job, and I'm just blessed to be a part of that team. And the plan we put together, it's again has your handiwork on it. And we thank you again for providing. You've done some pretty amazing miracles and just allowing us to have the Chromebooks in hand and taking care of some funding issues. And it's real obvious to us that you've got our backs. In fact, you're leading us. And so we just want to thank you for that. We look forward to the school year, as difficult as the challenging it might be. We look for the blessings in that. And we look forward to interacting with one another and educating and growing spiritually. So again, thank you for this opportunity to be together. We're so grateful to have a family where we can lean on one another and support each other through this. So again, blessings on each person and their time and their families. And we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Thanks, everybody.
On the Lions in question, will you, I'd like to get, it's paid through our business office, but I could probably help get you some additional details about that, because I'm not sure on how that works. Anyone can, if you email me at dmoore@ecaoh.com, or Kim or any of us, I can get you in touch with Marcia Straub, who handles that in our business office, and how that's billed. I think it's I want to say weekly or monthly. I think it's weekly, but I'm not sure. Oh, thanks, Len. Looks like it's billed monthly.
That's pretty good.
Hey, no, I don't know how you handle 3 online meetings. I can barely handle 1. It is our plan to stay open. I know we've heard that, if a county goes into purple, will there be some kind of a mandatory remote shutdown? But, I can tell you the conversations that I've had with Pastor Essig, as well as our return to school plan is barring we are told that we have to, our goal is to stay open unless we have a breakout once again in the building at several different levels. We may have to take a short remote break that could look like 3 days. It could look like 5, worst case scenario would be 14. but it is, I can tell you from a teacher's point of view and from my point of view, what we had to do in fourth quarter, I hope never happens again. And so I hope that answers your question. Answer the question about testing. Once again, that's going to be, we will do what we were required to do by the local health department. For us to tell someone that we require you to get tested, once again, now your individual rights. And I think, if you've been exposed, we have the right to, tell you have to quarantine, but the right to make you test, that's a whole nother thing. Carrie, you want to follow up with anything on that? I know we've kind of talked about that. And once again, we're waiting on additional wording and guidance from the local health department.
Yeah, definite more information will be coming on that. But if you do get tested and you test negative once you're exposed, so like, let's say you're exposed and day 2, you go get tested. I mean, you might not test positive right then. And you might actually have it and then come to school and then, potentially expose, even more people. So that's the difficult thing. If you are having symptoms and you go and get tested and it's negative, some doctors will say, let's get tested. If it's negative, you have to wait 24 hours in between to get tested again, and you have to have 2 negative tests for that. But that, again, is specific to individual physicians, because, there are the pop-up testing places that you can go, and you don't have to have a physician order for that. So it is based upon your preference as to whether you want your child to be tested or not. But if they are exposed and we have that paper from the health department, it is a mandatory 14 quarantine day before you can come back to school. Thanks,
Carrie.
Yep.
I'm going to take a couple questions that have come in. And, if the students are in a small group special education class, would they be required to wear their masks? So, there's nothing in the verbiage of that order that gives us a right to exclude a mask. And so until we have additional guidance with that, then they would need to mask up. If that could be an issue, I would suggest a shield for that student. They have shields all the way down to the young students as well. Now, if we receive additional verbiage or definition of when and where that can happen, then we can take a look at that. But at the moment, that would be the case. In regard to the MAPS question, we will have some information coming out to you on that. But yes, that is something that I perceive that could happen if you're a remote learner and you need to do the MAPS test. How would we facilitate that? Well, for one thing, the one-to-one technology helps us out immensely on that. So I'll tell you, there'll be some more information coming about MAPS for student remote learners. So more to come there, but really good question. Yeah, that's a good question too. The Chromebooks allow us, the question is, will in-person students be doing MAPS testing on Chromebooks or using library computers? I'm happy to say that most of those library computers are going to be gone. We are going to keep a few for certain times when we will need them. but we will have backup Chromebooks available as well as the student Chromebooks, and those will be what are used on maps. And it really helps us out for the testing piece. A student to be able to use their own Chromebook they're used to. And, you know, as far as the germ spreading as well, to not have students going on, you know, computers that everybody else has been using. That cuts that out as well. So good question, but that's one reason we just feel like the Chromebooks have been a huge answer to prayer in the timing that this is going to happen. Something we've been wanting to do for a long time, and it just became necessary. All right. And any other questions?
Not seeing any.
We do have a question about the elementary Christmas program. So,
can I comment on that? We're going to go over to your house, Elisa.
I tell you this, Mrs. Allen has already started talking about this. She has some great ideas, and you know, I'm confident that we have some alternatives, some ideas. You know, we're used to singing performances, but she had some ideas on how we could make this happen. And so I think it's safe to say that we're going to be working through that. We don't want to eliminate the program. It'll probably look different, but she has some ideas already. So a 5th and 6th grade learner, remote learner. And, you know, the interesting thing, I'll go back to Elisa's question first. Could it be held at a different location to allow for social distancing? That is possible. It may depend on, you know, we've used the church from time to time because there's a lot of area to spread out there, but it may depend on what they allow us to do. We also have the access that it could be held in the gym because the capacity in the gym is much higher than the capacity that is in the cafeteria. So all those will be discussed as well. And we're kind of talking through that because we also have a play that we're working through. We'd love to be able to offer that we're looking at October, but we kind of have to see what happens. So 5th and 6th grade remote learning. So that's the grade so I believe that we have like this TK through 4 model that starts out as TK through 6. But what I can tell you is at the 5th and 6th grade level, we would really like it to look a little bit more like the 7th and 8th grade level at some point. I don't think that's going to happen from the first day of school, but I do believe what can happen is in the 5th and 6th grade level that it becomes a little bit more common to have, you know, that live stream during the day. I do know that 5th and 6th graders still need to establish routines. And at the beginning of the year, I don't believe it's going to look the same as maybe 2 or 3 weeks in. So we're talking through with our 5th and 6th grade teachers. In fact, we have a meeting with our staff again tomorrow morning about that remote learning component. And we still continue to work through what that will look like. We'll be checking at 8 a.m. the rest of the day. Once again, as a general overview, some live times, some recorded times, and then we'll just kind of have to see how it goes. Question about coming in for chapel services. We still plan on having a TK through 6 chapel. I'm sorry, a TK through 3 chapel, and then a 3rd through 6. They will be spaced out in the cafeteria. Parents will be welcome to come to those. You will have to wear a mask. You will have to be temperature scanned, and we will open up. We are still working through what 7th through 12th grade chapel will look like. So that is still something we're still talking through. Will remote learners be able to participate in sports? The answer is yes. And of course, it all depends on what happens with sports. We've been given clearance for some sports right now. All of our fall sports are practicing. Not all of them have been cleared for contest yet. And so, some of that we'll just have to wait and see what happens. I'm picturing, a remote student that maybe wants to participate in junior high, or I'm sorry, in a cheerleading club or wrestling club. And we'll just have to take those situations as they come. The question about remote students coming to chapel, I don't know. It's a good question, but my feeling is if I have a parent that really wants their student to be remote, then they need to be remote. Do I want them to have access to activities? Yes. Athletics, chapel, maybe. But the problem is if we're looking at the student population in the building, and now we're trying to make an adjustment for chapel, and now we're trying to make an adjustment for that, I think you have to go back to why am I remote? If that's a concern about exposure, just understand that remote adds exposure. I'm sorry, remote is not exposure, whereas bringing them in for athletics and chapel is. And so I guess that could be the short answer to that. Could chapel be potentially streamed? Yeah, thanks, John. However, I think the first things we're looking at is how do we academically stream and be effective? And then, I know a lot of churches have been able to stream. Is that a possibility? Yes. I know we're not going to do chapel for the first few weeks just until we can make sure we have it and are able to do it right and safely. And so I believe that's something that is on the docket to be talked about. A lot of this we will learn, make adjustments, and I always try to err on what's the best for the student and the parent. Respect your parent decisions, but also respect the decisions we have to make for the building as well. But I think that's our starting point. All right, we'll go a few more minutes here and open up for any other questions.
Looks good. Yeah, I mean, reiterate that we are available, email, call. So if something pops up, a question, don't worry about it. Just send it. You might ask the question we all need to hear. So, or that other people are asking. And so, feel free to reach out to us.
Question may seem a bit unrelated. Any attempt to find out why Emmanuel students were excluded from receiving pandemic EBT cards? I'll have to research that. Not sure. John, you heard anything about that? Carrie, Lynn?
Lynn is going to say
Kim
something.
knows,
I think. Yeah.
Kim knows a little bit about that. If you want to, she can further discuss it. I'm not sure if she's still on this, but you can give her a call in the office. I know she'll be in at some point tomorrow, or you can email her. I know she knows a bit on it. I know a bit, but I prefer her to talk about it.
Yep. Yeah, I don't think they were excluded. Just to comment a little bit, I think that you just need to contact Jobs and Family Services. It's not. I'm not sure it's exclusion. They may have fumbled, but I don't want to speak authoritatively, but I think it's more of a delay, and so contact Jobs and Family Services. That's probably the best thing. Kim can help you, but she'll probably tell you to do the same thing.
We are in our office tomorrow, by the way, and so feel free to give us a call tomorrow, email, follow up on that question. Hopefully that helps. Yes, Rhonda, we are recording even at this very moment, and it will be put up on our website and be available for you to listen to.
Although if you come in late, we cut it in half. That way it's only fair, Rhonda.
I think there's an access fee or something, isn't it?
Yeah.
And Rhonda, you can call me tomorrow too if you have a particular question. So I believe we will go ahead and wrap up. I just want to say thanks again. Good to see faces out there. Can't emphasize enough. We appreciate you. We love what we do here, even amongst the challenges. We wouldn't do it if we didn't love it. We have a great staff, great people, and we're here to help you. You guys take care, and we'll sign off, and we'll make sure this recording gets available to you real soon. Wave goodbye.
Peace out.